So that leads us into the new M2. So I was going to save this for later on, but might as well, jump right into it right now.
Sure,
So
let's do it.
I guess we drove the guy together in whatever was in Phoenix, Arizona, some really
Yep.
interesting roads around there. And then your review comes out, and then the internet blows up pretty much, or at least the BMW internet blows up,
Oh
or the
yeah,
Beamer forums or Beamer post,
oh yeah.
and essentially you become even more famous like you weren't before, and you hop in and you talk to people about the car. So I call this in our article the infamous Throttle House third gear test.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
people were like asking me, so how come you guys didn't experience the same thing? And I was like, well, I think I kept the car mostly in the high RPM range, and that's why I
Yes.
wouldn't see that lag a little bit. But
Yep.
let's talk about this. Like, tell me, what was your first experience with the car, and especially compared to the M2 that you had, things that you liked, things that you disliked, maybe.
Well, see, so that was the thing, is that, like, as an M2 owner, and we were just talking about this 2 seconds ago, that punchy low end torque that the N55 had, and the S55 had it too. It was more prominent in the N55, in my opinion. But the way that the manual is geared in the newest M2, it's very out of the torque range completely in the lower RPMs, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what James was demonstrating in that moment of the video. And everyone obviously jumped on it. Who does that? Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. It was a demonstration. That was the purpose of it, is to show you that the engine feels very dead at those low RPMs because of that gearing, right? And I agree. If you are in the higher RPMs, the car is faster. It is objectively better. Doesn't sound worse or better, in my opinion. It sounds about the same, right? So I have no problem with it from a performance perspective, but the idea was that the M2 is always such a great kind of like low RPM snarling like warthog of a car, right? It had that character of like being really spicy even at low RPMs, because you just get this huge surge of boost and the whole thing. And so to me, it didn't have the same character, it didn't have the same approachability from a daily drivability perspective, right? So if you're just kind of driving along and you're not wringing out the gears every single time, the car felt a little bit lifeless to me, right? And and I think what we ended up doing, did we compare it directly? I think I found I don't think we ever published this, but I went out when we got back. This is when the whole thing was happening. I was talking to people on the forums. I went out and I filmed my M2. Did this go in the video? I don't even remember. I filmed my M2 from 2,000 RPM or 3,000 RPM, whatever it was, in the same gear. And you could literally see the difference in torque down there. It was so obvious. And so that's the thing that I was pointing out. I mean, this is among many other things about the new M2, including the styling. Right. But just kind of like as a whole package, that car wasn't and isn't still what I would prefer. And I know that Chris Harris,
what do you think is missing?
Agrees with me.
But
I just had lunch with
he
Chris
actually
Harris.
does. He actually loves the car, right?
He loves the car. I just had lunch with Chris Harris when I was in England, and I told him to his face, I don't think he's right.
But what do you think it's missing?
Well, first of all, it's missing a front end that, I actually enjoy looking at. So there's that. But I mean, from a like a track driving perspective, when you are up in the revs and you are sliding the car around, it's brilliant. It's definitely better than the old one, no question, right? But for me, that car was about being able to enjoy it all the time, every day, right? And the OG M2 had, as I said, more of a snarling low end character. It was a little bit more approachable from lower revs, so it felt really zesty all the time, right? Which I really enjoyed about it. So yeah, the new one just didn't quite do that for me. The added weight, you don't really notice it, I will admit, until you are under braking or you're doing a lot of laps and you start to account for heat being added to brake systems and that sort of thing, right? Then you start to notice the weight. But BMW engineers are so good at what they do that car was unbelievable. It's so quick. But yeah, primarily, this is just an opinion. I don't like the way it looks, and I can't get over it. I've tried so many times to get over it, but I can't, because half of what makes the OG M2 so interesting to me is that, like, it sat outside my window for a couple years at my house, and I would just literally look out the window at it. I'd go, look, it just looks so damn good, right? The proportions are
Yeah.
perfect. Also, if you want to get into the
Agreed.
nitty gritty of it, there's less headroom in the back now in the new generation.
Yeah, I
Right?
think it's got
That's
more
true for the new
coupage
2
roof line. They
Series.
decided to make it even more coupage than it was before, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Like, you could fit a full-grown adult, not easily, but you
Mhm.
could technically fit a full-grown adult in the back seat of the OG M2, and you can't in the new one. That to
Yeah,
me
for sure.
is an error in packaging, right?
Yeah.
So, also the steering's worse. It's worse. It just is. Like the OG M2 had better steering feedback. So there you go. Those are my main reasons. Again, it's not a bad
No,
car.
no,
But
no, I mean, you're
here's the
absolutely
thing though
right.
about BMWs, if you just made that thing absolutely stunning, if it was just gorgeous, every proportion was great, it didn't have anything too avant-garde, which is what
Yeah.
they're doing now.
Mhm.
Well, I'm the lead designer has now moved to Rolls-Royce. I'm sure we'll chat about that in a second. But the I think if it had all that, I would overlook a lot of the other stuff just because
Mhm.
desirability trumps so many other things, right?
For sure. I agree on that. I mean, honestly, I know both designers really, really well. Known them for a long time, actually. And every time I see one or the other, I always tell them that the other car is the better looking car, just to annoy them a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But they have
Exactly.
different philosophies, so I
Yeah.
get it. I guess the times when the F87 was done, I just wrote a story on it with my team, where we said, it was back in the day when the F generation was there. Every car was more like, same sausage, different length, and they were like softer and all of that. And then they decided to go this direction, which is arguably bolder and everything else. It's fun because I was reading some forums also the other day on different topic, and people were like, oh, the M2, it's aging well. And I'm like, I don't know, let's see in 10, 15 years how that's going to age.
No, it isn't. No, it's
Yeah, it's,
not. It's not aging. I'm sorry.
it's
Like when you so obviously the two main designers, Chris Bangle and Dom. How do you say his first name?
Domagoy.
Domagoj.
Domagoy.
Ah, okay, that makes sense
Domagoy.
because like there's no way
Yeah.
it's the way it's spelled. Like those two designers are known for doing the two eras of BMW that are the most like polarizing, I said avant-garde, different, right? But right now, if I asked anyone what the best looking 7 Series of all time is, what do you think they're going to say?
Probably going to say the Bengal bot, huh?
No, they're
No?
not.
No, I'm probably going to say the E39, maybe.
They're
Not the
going to
E39,
say
but I'm
the
thinking
E38. The E38.
the E38, yeah.
Exactly, right? They're
Yeah,
going to say that, that was in Tomorrow Never Dies. It's
yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
gorgeous. It's timeless. And I'm sorry, for me, what makes a good car design is something that's pretty, something that isn't too polarizing, something that will transcend generations, right? So when you
Yeah,
look back on it, you go, it doesn't matter what perspective you're looking at, that is, in this case, objectively good looking. There are such things as proportions that make stuff pleasing to the eye. If you want to get into the, 1.618 ratio, right? Like there are things in the natural world that we enjoy looking at and things that we don't enjoy looking at as human beings instinctually.
yeah,
So for me, good car design is something that, as I said, will transcend whatever trend we currently are at, right? Anything that's too trendy or too polarizing, it just almost always doesn't last. There's so many exceptions to that in the history of car design, of course, right?
yeah.
Like things that were like, well, that's really, really different. But then, over time, people are like, that's actually beautiful. But I just don't think that the new M2 is going to be one of those things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's people expected a facelift on it. I don't think it's going to be one, at least not for a long time. And then the
Yeah.
M2 CS, of course, that's just going to bring some CS bits, so nothing major. We're not going to see a major change. But
No.